Hey guys, it's Jim. Thanks for tuning in and come back. Hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you are. And in this video, I'm going to do another Aurora HDR workflow. This was an image I took in England when I was there back in January of this year, so it's been a while. But I was messing around with the photo and I just kind of felt like it was kind of interesting, so I thought I'd share it. So here we go. These are the three exposures that I shot. And the reason I found it interesting was because it was something I shot straight into the sun. And, you know, if the sun's setting and you got that soft light and stuff, then that's usually, you know, hey, yeah, shoot at the sunset. This was, you know, an hour or so before sunset, and the sun was, maybe not an hour, but anyway, the sun was pretty high. It was bright, coming right at me. Anyway, you can see the three exposures. That last one's just kind of a blown out mess. The middle one's okay in that you can see the building, but the sky's kind of gone. And the first one, the dark ones, you know, most everything's too dark except for the sky. But I was able to make a number of edits in Aurora and a little touch up in Luminar as well. And I came up with that. Now, that's obviously very different and much more colorful, but I liked it. It was kind of, to me, sort of symbolic of the location. It was, to me, a bright and colorful, kind of cheerful place. That was this old manor house, castle kind of ruin thing. And it was just awesome. So there's the middle exposure. And there's the final result. And here's a split screen before and after. And I'll go ahead and dive into this and I'll show you how I got there. 1 second. Okay, so here's the base HDR. Let me show you. There's the center exposure and there's the blended HDR with no edits yet. Actually looks pretty good. And that's one of the things I was kind of surprised about. I thought, God, it actually looks kind of good. I was sort of taking the photo simply because I like the vantage point with that tree. And it was January, so it was, you know, winter, for lack of a better word. And that tree was bare, so that it looked kind of broken and dead. And then the house is kind of in ruins. And I don't know, it just kind of, I just liked it. So the first thing I did is go to the Hdr Basic Panel. And here I was kind of brightening the image, giving a little bit of warmth, add some contrast, and some smart tone, and trying to get the light a little bit in a better shape, if you will. And then I went to the color filter, and here was a bump in vibrance and color contrast. And as you can see, it's like, bam, it's really starting to pop. And at this point, I was kind of like, you know, I might have something here. Now that's not really what I want. It's a little too much green for me, but I felt like, all right, maybe I'm onto something. Maybe I have a photo that, you know, it's not going to be some amazing photo, but it's going to be something that I can salvage that I thought was really just a throwaway. Or, you know, based on the fact that that was my center exposure, I thought, well, I'm going to have to do a stark black and white with a blown out sky. But once I got here, I was kind of like, maybe I'm not. I can do something in color. So a little image radiance to add back a little bit of that shadow. And then some polarizing filter, as you can see, helped control a little bit of that brightness in the sky. Then I went down to top and bottom tuning. And that was mostly in the bottom. In fact, completely in the bottom. There you go. I added some exposure and contrast just to give it a little more oomph in the bottom. So there's the before. And there's the after. I like where we are so far. This is where I was able to do some things that I thought really added some interest to the photo. And that's with the tone curve. So let me turn this on and show you what I did. There's the after, right? So there's before. To me, a little too green, that sort of thing. And after, a little bit more blue and kind of that orangey red to make it look more like a sunset, even though it wasn't quite sunset. It was still, you know, pretty bright. But here, as you can see, I not only mess with the tone curve itself, which is this white dot, and this is not a tutorial on tone curve necessarily. I did a little S curve there, but I went into the red and I added a little bit of impact there. I went to the green where I dragged it a little bit away from green toward magenta. And then in blue, I also moved it a little bit to get it closer to blue and away from yellow. So overall, I went from that, which was kind of yellow-green, not as much blue, and really no kind of pinkish sunset color, to that where I had a lot more blue and more of that pink sunset color. So if you haven't watched my other videos about tone curve, I think I did them in Luminar, but it's the same idea. So I'll put a link in the corner there, and you can check it out if you'd like to. And then here I went into HSL, and that was mostly about getting that green under control. I just reduced the saturation of the green. So if you look at it before, kind of a neon green in in the grass there, and afterwards a little bit tamer. And that's something to think about when you have kind of brightish green grass. When you merge to HDR, and then especially if you're adjusting contrast and other colors, they really start, that green really starts to get neon and crazy. So it's something that I'm often finding I have to go in and control on really just about every HDR that has grass in it. Something to think about. This layer was simply denoise. I can close that. I just went in and stuck some denoise across the sky and the water, which looks like, oh, let me turn the layer on, which looks like this. So I just masked that in kind of quickly. And then I was at the point where I said, all right, I think I'm pretty happy with this. There's a couple things I didn't really like. Number one, there's a couple of spots, and you can go a number of places to do that. I decided to use Luminar as a plugin. You can do that in Aurora, if you have Luminar, that is. So I just went to plugins and I chose Luminar, and it took me over to Luminar. And so then I got to this this layer. And so what I did in Luminar, I did a couple of things. Number one, I removed those spots. I also added the sun flare or sun rays filter, and it's dreaded by many. You know, I think in the beginning everybody used it on every photo. Even when the light was coming from different directions, I think you saw photos where it basically looked as though there were two suns on this Earth. In this case, like when you have the sun and it's clearly prominent, and let me turn this layer off, you know, the sun is obviously there. You can see these like specular highlights coming off the sun and all that. I went ahead and put the sun rays filter on it because what I did not get, I shot it at f/18 by the way, but I didn't get a starburst. I think the sun was just too bright. I'm guessing that's the reason. I don't really know enough. I don't shoot those a lot, but I wanted to put the sun ray filter on there and pump it up a little bit. I also moved it around so that like these little highlights that I mentioned are actually in one of the rays, just to, I don't know, this is kind of fun. And then I removed the spots that I talked about. So I think it's looking pretty cool, but you know, I wanted to do a couple more things. So I went into the HDR Basic Panel, and here, believe it or not, I actually took the tint toward the green. It was a little too orangey pink there, so it's looking to me a little unreal maybe. And I made it a little bit more orange by taking that tint away from the pink and toward the green. It balanced it out a little bit. Tiny bit of contrast and a little bit of, smart tone. And then I came over here to the color filter. And in this case, I actually took the saturation down. It was getting a little intense. There it is before, and there it is after. It's -10, so it's a minor adjustment, but I wanted to do that just to give it a little bit of control. And then HSL, here I actually came in and took down the orange and the blue. Both were getting a little kind of fired up. Let me show you the before. The blue and the orange are both really saturated. It's like a big battle between orange and the blue. And those two colors, I think, are great together. I just thought it was a little intense. So I took that down, and that's my final photo. So I went from that as a single exposure to that as a finished product. And that's using Luminar as well, but simply for the sun rays filter and spot removal. And that was really it. So to me, this is the beauty of HDR. I think you probably have read before. I know I've heard and read, you know, don't shoot into the sun, especially bright sun. You know, maybe it's bad for the camera. Hasn't had any impact on my camera. But also it's like, you know, you're going to have such heavy shadow. You're never going to get detail out of the photo and that sort of thing. But bracketing into the sun, it actually works. And I do it, you know, sometimes. I don't do it a ton. But again, there's the before and there's the after. And then here's the sliding before after. Again, I just thought it was an interesting exercise to shoot into the sun like that and be able to actually recover it despite the fact that even the center exposure is completely, you know, well, not completely, but mostly blown out. And you saw the bright exposure was very blown out. It was only the dark one that sort of saved me. And by the way, I shot this at -4, -2, and 0. Definitely shooting to the left. And in fact, I probably should have shot at -5, -3, -1, considering how bright it was with the sun coming at me. But I was at f/18. So anyway, I think it worked out pretty well. One more time, here's the before and the after. And that's a quick workflow video in Aurora HDR, shooting into the sun and using Luminar as a plugin. Hope it helps. If you have any questions, let me know. Stick a comment down below, like the video, share, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you soon, friends. Hope you're doing great. See you soon. Take care, and adios.